listener production.
Hello, it's weekend briefing time. I'm Antoinette Lattouf. So do you remember what you said you wanted to be when you grow up? So picture it, it's a primary school-aged you standing in front of your peers, telling your class what you hope you'll be in a decade or so time. At that age, we often don't know what our passion is, and if we do, few people are lucky enough to pursue it, let alone absolutely shine and excel in it. Frances Rings is one such person. She is the most acclaimed Indigenous dancer and choreographer in the country. She's now the artistic director of Bangarra Dance Theatre, and we explore her fascinating life. From a little girl who came from a working class family that couldn't afford dance lessons, to her first production as leader of Bangarra, which is called Horizon, and it's touring now. And later in the show, it is the fabulous Weekend List, headed by the fabulous Helen Smith, and she's going to direct you and inspire you about what to eat, do, listen to, and see, and everything in between. But first, here's my chat with Frances Rings. Frances Rings, welcome to the Weekend Briefing.
Thank you, Antoinette. It's really great to be here.
I am fascinated to learn about your journey with dance and where it began, because so many little girls twirl around and say, I'm a ballerina and love to dance. When did you realise it was more than your general toddler twirling?
My story into dance is very unusual and, not the usual course that young girls would have of, that aspiration, that first seeing a ballerina or seeing a ballet company or Swan Lake and aspiring for that. I think for me, I was a bit of I was very shy as a child. I was very conscious of our family unit and how that compared to other family units. I grew up in a little town called Port Augusta, and that's in South Australia. And it's a mix of many cultures, lots of migrants, lots of Indigenous tribes that frequented there and lived there. It's got a big Aboriginal community called Davenport. And, we lived in, one of the suburbs called Willesden, and I just remember my year one teacher, I had her for a few years, but she actually could see that, I was interested in the creative industries and in art, and so she really gave me confidence in that. I was a bit of a dreamer. I think that dance was my first language, and my father tells me I was in the backyard, creating theatre works in our cubby house and dressing up my siblings and, creating these other worlds. And I felt safe in that place. It was a place where I could create the world that I wanted to be in. And maybe it was a bit of, for children who are kind of, trying to work out who they are, it was a tool that I used to explore that, my identity, who I was, and how I made sense of the world.
You said you were self-conscious about your family unit. What was it that made you self-conscious when it came to dance?
Being the daughter of a German migrant and an Aboriginal mother, and kind of sits out, in the early 70s, that was different,
Yes.
that didn't, our family didn't look like other families. And, in a school community, you can be very conscious about that. And it was something that I think really affected my confidence. You kind of tend to kind of lay low and drawn to those things that that offer you a safe haven. And the arts and creativity was one of those places. And it just felt right. It felt like a language that best represented me and that I could communicate with. I think that there's a contribution of many things. We couldn't go to the theatre. We didn't have a lot of money. We weren't wealthy. We were actually quite poor. But we had a garden. We had that we grew our own vegetables, and we went out bush, most weekends. And, that's how I grew up. That was my childhood, and I loved it. I loved, in the bush, that being amongst nature and kind of again, creating these worlds and allowing my imagination to just thrive really kind of fed me. And I enjoyed what it gave me, the feeling it gave me as well. And I could always go back to that when I felt unsafe. I could go back to those imaginary worlds and I could kind of create other worlds. And I didn't know that this could be a career.
Well, the thing about the arts, especially cultivating it from a young age, it can be very expensive. I think you talk about not having a lot of money. Was it cost prohibitive to get into to those circles and those lessons?
Yeah. I remember I used to watch this girl and she had beautiful long red hair and she was gorgeous and she did Scottish dancing and she was confident. She had these beautiful clothes and I looked at her and I just have so much admiration for her and like, oh God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be like her. I wish that I could, do dancing, and it was something that we couldn't afford. It's not to say that I was unhappy because of that. I just kind of, went into other worlds and into other, I did drama at school and that was a part of the curriculum and, I really loved that. Speech and drama was fantastic, and English and, all of those. And history was another subject that I really loved kind of. And it's funny because it all feeds into the work that I do today, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all informed by that. Yeah.
Well, we're going to get to the work you do today as the creative director of Bangarra Dance Theatre. But before then, so you don't necessarily have formal lessons. You do what you can through school. How did you then make this your career and get the training to pursue the arts?
I like to think that it was never far away from me, my connection to dance. It always felt right. It felt like a companion, and it felt like a language that I really connected with from a deep cellular level. It's really hard to explain, but I knew that I was going to do it somehow. And I was really just trusting and waiting for that opportunity. That really came when I was in year 11 and HSC dance was brought in as an elective, and I chose that. At this stage, I was in Queensland at a high school called Bangarra High School in Ipswich, and our dance teacher took us to Sydney to see Cats at Theatre Royal. And
was that your first musical?
It was my first time in a theatre.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And first musical, Andrew Lloyd Webber and Cats, and, I think Marina Pryor was in it. Like, it was just...
Quite the introduction.
Incredible. Right. It just was a transformative moment in my life that was like, well, this, I can't imagine not doing anything else than being on stage and, telling stories and doing that with my instrument, with my body and training for that. And my last year of high school, my speech and drama teacher came and she gave me a pamphlet and she said, this is a dance college for Indigenous students. It's in Sydney. And one of our past students went there last year. That was actually Sydney Saltner, who was the director of our youth programs. We went to the same high school. So we looked into it and I said, wow, this looks pretty incredible. It had this image of this Aboriginal woman jumping, and she had paint on and she was wearing, feathers and a costume and just making this shape that didn't look like ballet. It looked like something else, but it was so intriguing. And I said, well, can we put in for can I apply? And, so I went through that process and I finished my HSC that year. After I finished my exams, I jumped on the bus to Sydney. I was 17. Jumped on the bus to Sydney.
By yourself?
And then by myself, just arrived and made my way to Glebe and met everyone, and they put us at a hostel for a couple of weeks and did the auditions, and then just walked into Naysder Dance College, it's called. I was just awestruck at these beautiful Indigenous people who were so proud, who were really strong in their identity, who spoke language, who owned their sexuality, who moved like nothing I'd ever seen before and just exuded this confidence. And I was just, it was just drawn in and mesmerised.
I hear two things
Yeah.
from your journey. One, that you knew that creating and moving your body was for you, even though you didn't necessarily know what the avenues were or hadn't been exposed to that world so much. Secondly is the importance of teachers who really saw you for who you are. From primary school to high school, it sounds like you had incredible teachers who saw how incredible you are.
Yeah, that first teacher that I had, I think from year 1 to year 3, I had her. And those first 3 years of my life, to have a teacher like that, she now owns a bookstore called Meg's Bookstore. It's in Port Pirie.
So you're still in touch?
Still in touch.
Oh,
she
that's
still
amazing.
comes and sees, she'll come to Adelaide and see the show. She, is in contact. But to have that kind of, somebody believe in you and somebody see something in you that you know that you've got, but it's not evident and it's hidden behind these layers of insecurity and these layers of just not believing in yourself and not knowing that there's a place for you because you can't see it. At that stage, I didn't see any Indigenous dancers on TV or, I didn't hear about NAISDA or any Aboriginal dancers that were working for companies. And I mean, I've watched Young Talent Time and that was, I love the Minogue sisters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see what I could become. So I had to make that up for myself.
And in making that up for yourself, you have an illustrious career, but it includes dancing, choreographing, curating, now leading. What have been some of your highest points? Actually, probably start with dancing. Has there been a production or something you've been involved in as dance that stands out to you as
There's
a real high
few
point?
really pivotal moments in my career that have really kind of shifted who I am as a person and as an artist. One of those was I graduated from NAISDA, auditioned for Bangarra and was accepted into the company. At this stage, Bangarra was in a little police boys club in Redfern at this stage.
Right. So what year is this roughly?
That was 93 when I joined. So meeting Stephen and the company and his brothers. I mean, I'd met them at NAISDA, but now was working with them. And Stephen was really strict and he said, look, I just want you, I'm not putting you on stage. I want you to watch. I want you to take in how we create our works, how we work with community, learn from our cultural consultants and our dancers and just absorb and take this in. So, that was, you kind of graduate after a 5-year course, you're ready to go on stage and then you're told to wait. But I think that important year was really, really healthy for me to watch and observe and take in the history, take in Stephen's way of creating, his relationships with community and his relationships with cultural consultants and how he worked closely with them to collaborate to make works. I felt like I still needed further training. I wasn't happy with where I was. So I went to New York and I studied over there for a while, and that was really important to challenge myself and really push myself and be in a place, in a city that is full of dancers, and I loved it. And I think I came back with a more global view of dance, of black dance, and also, the potential of, what we could be doing in Australia. I guess doing my first full-length work for Bangarra, that was Terrain, and that was in 2012 that I did that, and that was another pretty pivotal moment. What I'm most proud of is that it's now on the HSC syllabus, and this was, I think that full circle moment of doing HSC dance and now having my work on the syllabus to be studied by HSC dance students is...
And by your work, you were the choreographer?
Yeah.
And the producer of that?
Of Terrain, yeah.
You talked about seeing black dancing in the United States. I want to discuss the relationships you have and the connections with black dance in, say, Indigenous people in Canada or New Zealand, or, how much is Bangarra or yourself individually connected or learning from other dancers in other countries?
For me personally, when I left Bangarra, I did 12 years with the company and I was a bit burnt out, so I just wanted to have a break. I wanted to see the world, work with other companies and also have my own family. I was, early 30s at this stage. And I had been given the opportunity to travel to the Banff Centre in Canada. They had a Indigenous dance residency there. So I applied for funding and went over, and I was invited, as a choreographer to be there. And it was the first time I kind of had this exchange and this opportunity to hear from and work with other First Nations or Indigenous international choreographers and artists, and that was fascinating. They would share with us, their cultural dances, and we would exchange stories, history, the way we tell, our stories through our techniques, and, just have this really rich conversation. And that's where I first kind of met, I met Jack Gray, actually, who worked with a company called Atamira Dance Company. They're based in Auckland. Yeah, that really kind of planted the seed of my interest in, being able to work more and have an opportunity to share, to exchange, to creatively come together and collaborate with Indigenous First Nations creatives.
So you took a break, you went and studied abroad, worked on other projects, started your family, and then it kind of came full circle because you returned to Bangarra Dance Theatre. You took over from Stephen Page, who'd been artistic director for 30 years. What was that like? There are many feelings. There's a sense of pride. There's a sense of being completely terrified, of being, in awe of, the shoes that you step into. I was really conscious, and the way I think of it is that he's handing me, we have a wooden bowl and it's called a coolerman, and in that coolerman, Aboriginal women carried their babies, we carried water, we carried food, and, I felt like I had been gifted this smoking coolerman of over 30 years of knowledge, of stories, of relationships, of connection to communities, of a kinship to all the alumni that have been a part of Bangarra, and a deep sense of responsibility to caring for that, but also that flame never go out, that flame is always being cared for. It's respecting the custodianship of what I've inherited, but also, ensuring that this flame is just going to burn bright. And, I'm different to Stephen in many ways. He mentored me. I was a muse for many years for him, but also I'm a very different artist and choreographer, and I think that those differences are our strengths. So what's coming up for Bangarra?
Well, we're in season at the moment. We have a show called Horizon. This is my first commission. I am really proud of this work. I have 3 choreographers. It's in 2 acts, and there's 3 choreographers. The first choreographer is Sonny Townsend. He's a Saibai Island man, and Sonny actually works as he was a dancer for many years in Bangarra. And he now works as a youth programs coordinator with our youth programs team. And he travels around Australia with Sydney Saltner, who's our director of youth programs, and the team, working with communities and facilitating this really important exchange of knowledge and stories between children and elders for the opportunity to create their own storytelling and their own mini Bangarra works. So, this is kind of like planting the seeds of future Bangarra dancers and creatives coming through, but also that they find, their sense of identity, much like myself and my own journey.
And what's Horizon about?
Horizon is this incredible work that starts with Kolka. Kolka came out of our Dance Clan program, and It's Dance Clan is a cultivated program for emerging choreographers, and Sunny Townsend did this incredible work. I have commissioned it for the main stage because it is such a sophisticated, intelligent work of deep cultural significance and a really interesting Torres Strait Islander contemporary dance methodology that he has used in his work. That's the first act. And the second act is by a collaboration between Deborah Brown, who is an ex-dancer with Bangarra, incredible artists working across our industry, and Mos Te Urarangi Patterson, who is from Ngāti Tuwharetoa, which is the Lake Taupo region of Aotearoa, the central North Island of Aotearoa. But having Deborah create her work, she's from Miriam Island in the Torres Strait, and Moss, they shared a theme called The Light Inside. And it's about home, and it's about what home represents culturally and also what they've inherited, and also how they navigate their contemporary world and hold culture strong in their identity and in their everyday lives. So, really interesting, powerful works that explore that theme in a different way, and just exciting to see a different language, a different generation of Bangarra choreography and creative and cultural expressions on our stage and being shared with our audiences.
I can't let you go without asking you about a type of dance that's sweeping the world and whether you partake in it. And I am talking about TikTok dancing.
Oh, my God.
Because it seems everybody thinks they're a dancer, whether they are or they're not. As someone who you talk about your body as being your instrument, have you ever engaged in a TikTok dance?
I have not.
You have not? Okay.
But I love it. I love that it's available as a tool to anybody.
Right, okay.
I love that it's intergenerational.
Yes.
I love that there's this sense of pride, of expression, of movement, of creativity, of having fun.
Yeah.
And I think anything that involves, expression, positivity and bringing joy and bringing a smile into people's, lives. And I think, that kind of joy I welcome. And it also breaks down this thing about being a dancer and having training,
Yeah.
We have dancers come in and they audition for Bangarra and, we have to untrain them because sometimes technique, it's great and it's really good for strengthening, but it can lock you into one way of moving. And it's like you are, 360-degree more than that, So it's about unlocking and finding who your true artist is and what your true voice is.
Well, you've had an incredible career. I'm just going to put out one challenge in case you want to achieve one more thing, and that is to make a Bangarra snippet of a dance go viral on TikTok.
Okay.
Here's a bit of a challenge.
Okay, well, I will consider that.
Okay.
I might actually kind of offload that to our dancers because I know they're always on TikTok and they're actually pretty good at it. But look, I'm up for it. I've been known to get back on stage sometimes.
I love it. I'll leave that with you. It has been amazing chatting with you, and best of luck with Horizon.
Thank you.
Frances Rings, Artistic Director of Bangarra Dance Theatre, and her first show in that role, Horizon, is touring now and will travel around the country until September 7. It's your favourite time of the week. It's weekend list time. Helen Smith, you've always got the best tips. What do you have today?
All right, my first recommendation is the new season of Abbott Elementary. It is a sitcom. It's filmed like a mockumentary style, and it's about teachers in a predominantly black school in Philadelphia. It is so bloody funny.
Okay.
And they kind of stare at the camera like it's filmed, like The Office, where they stare at the camera and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it was also created by one of the main characters who plays Miss Teagues. And yeah, she created this show. It's amazing. It features such a diverse cast and it's focusing on black kids in education and school. And it's won all these Golden Globes, all of these Critic Choice Awards. It's just bloody great. And this is the third
funny.
season. Yeah, it's just funny.
Yeah, that's what we need.
It's like, come on. It's so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where can we catch it?
You can watch it on Disney Plus and you can binge away.
Are they long episodes? Because I'm really into bite-sized entertainment.
So from memory, they're about 20 minutes.
Okay, that's good. That's the sweet spot for a little giggle.
It's good. And there's we're up to season 3. So if you love it, go to the start, man. Season 1, 2, 3. You've got binging for days.
Okay, so my recommendation is about binging less, but binging less on meat. So I have started to kind of not trick myself, but ease myself into eating less meat. And the best way to do that is through alliteration. And so I'm doing Meatless Mondays and Seafood Saturday and Seafood Sunday. Because I reckon if I have a little trick.
Seafood's still meat.
Not really. But I'm trying to eat less red meat.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I said ease myself into it.
Ease, true.
Yes, but Meatless Monday is purely vegetarian.
Yeah.
And then obviously Seafood Saturday can be salmon or fish or whatever. And it's actually quite hard to do because I don't eat gluten and I don't eat dairy. And so sometimes you just go to meat because it's that's going to fill me up. Because I'm not going to be one of those people who sets myself up for something unrealistic and be I'm just going to cut out meat or cut my meat because our body can't process the amount of meat that we consume and it's not good for the environment and blah, 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 blah. So if you want to do that, maybe use a bit of alliteration and try it. It's so far been working really well for me for a week and a half. And that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I love this. I also do meatless days quite a lot because I'm the same. IBS girl.
Yeah.
It's not a
Not
vibe.
fun. It is not recommended. It is not on our list.
Not recommended. That is not recommended. My next recommendation is buying good running shoes. I'm in my running era.
Oh, I love that.
And it is so important to get good running shoes to prevent injury, to actually run properly as well. I went to a running shop. I went to the place I went was called Pace. Okay. But you can go to Athlete's Foot or anywhere, but just get someone to look at your foot, measure your foot, and you don't have to buy the shoes in store. You can just find out which shoe is good for you and get it online on sale or for cheaper. Compare the price, do your research because they can get pricey, $200. But if you're running so much, it's so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a fun fact that I found out, because we did an episode on run clubs with Katie Williams.
Yes.
It was really good. That when you're sprinting, you're actually putting 7 times your body weight pressure impact on that leg.
Oh, wow. And if you're going to run several times a week, then it's really, you really need to look after your feet.
Totally. So I was like, you know what? Once I heard that fact, I was like, oh, I got to get good running shoes. So I did it and I promise you will not regret it.
Excellent tip. Well, my final recommendation, and it's something, again, that I'm trying to do, is going off social media completely. Just for, I haven't decided on the amount of time. I'm not saying I'm quitting it forever, but having a break. And naturally, I went online to announce it because that's what you do. You're I had to announce my departure. I'm announcing my departure like I'm a flight. But I am doing my best to look after my mental health, create some space for recovery and just to be a little bit vintage 2004 before everybody was online all the time.
They call them dumb phones now. They're really in. You buy a dumb phone, a Nokia, one that doesn't have apps, it's not a smartphone. Buying a dumb phone and just using that for text, calls, communication.
I'm going to get one. I'm going to get one that's a flip phone because I want it also to look like I could be a drug dealer and I have a burner phone.
Because that's the image.
That's the image I want to portray.
That's what you're going for.
And so I've actually thought about that and I'm going to get a flip phone just because I think the theatrics would be hilarious.
I think it's great. And I think that also is a great thing to do. I have limited apps on my phone. So the app's close down and it reminds me every time I go to click on Instagram, it tells you, hey, do you really need to be doing this? No, I don't actually. It's a habit.
Yeah.
So I love that recommendation and bring in more dumb phones, I say.
Thanks, Helen. That's it for this week. Thanks so much for being with us, tuning in. Always a pleasure to have your company. Please give us a review of the Weekend Briefing. And if you're feeling super generous, you can rate and review every episode. Of course, we're back on Monday where the team will have the news of the day straight to your headphones along with a deep dive. Stay safe, everyone.
Listener.